Welcome to the Belarus Factor, the podcast where politics, power, and real talk about Belarus collide. I'm Ivan Kravtsov, broadcasting from Exile and bringing you the truth behind the headlines. Hey everyone, and welcome to the third episode of the podcast show Belarus Factor, which covers events throughout Belarus, the region, the political agenda, and security situation. Today I have a great guest, Andrei Yahorau, who is a member of the Coordination Council of Belarusian Opposition in Exile. He's former speaker of the Coordination Council. He's done a lot of research on foreign aid for Belarus, and he's been in civil society sector for 30 years, even more, I think. He's also part of the think tank and initiative called Center for European Transformation for Belarus. Andrei, very welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So why I really invited you, because there is a very acute topic happening all around the world, and which also impacts Belarus a lot. This is actually the foreign aid freeze, which was made by the executive order of President Trump and later by the executive order of Marco Rubio, who's now the Secretary of State of the United States. And this foreign aid freeze, it affects mostly USAID, which been I believe, the primary agency which disbursed funds towards various initiatives, and Belarusian initiative especially. Can you maybe tell a couple of words, what was the size of the foreign aid, what the size of foreign aid impacted, and how this system of foreign aid in the context of Belarus looks like?
If we are talking about general volumes of foreign aid of the United States for the world, it's huge. So it's around 50 billion, I suppose, per year of the foreign aid. And the packages for different countries and regions of the world, they are different. So Belarus is not a high priority for the foreign aid of the United States. Recent years, it was between, let's say, 20 millions to 30 millions US dollars per year. And these volumes constitute around 1/3 of the whole development of foreign aid for Belarus from different sources. And this, I guess, something like position in the rank of countries for their US for foreign aid, something like 190. So it's not a huge priority. Even if you compare with their countries of Eastern Partnership, for example, Georgia. Georgia has per year around 140 millions, so much more than Belarus today, and than Belarus ever had, even before the maximum volume of the U.S. foreign aid was previously in 2010, and it was around 40 million for those.
And those other donors, you said the U.S. foreign aid is about 1/3 of the volume. So who are the others which gave the money to Belarus initiatives?
The main donors for Belarus, apart from the United States, are European Union institutions. So they provide also around 30 million per year. And the rest are EU member states. The most important of them are Sweden, Germany, Poland, and some other countries that regularly contribute to Belarus foreign aid, like Czech Republic, sometimes Denmark. So that kind of function.
Yeah. So in total, it's about 100 million per year, right?
Yeah, so roughly it's about 100 million per year from different sources, and here we also should understand that after 2020 events, all their foreign aid for the state was frozen, and none of the international donors, maybe except of some UN institutions, don't work with Belarusian government, and all of this aid are directed to their independent sector, so to the civil society, independent media, democratic forces, cultural institutions, and so on.
Okay. So when you were comparing this to other countries, so I got an impression, so you say this is not really a big volume of support. So you say that 100 million, is it a lot or it isn't?
Of course, it's not a lot. So you can simply compare foreign aid for other countries. So if we take U.S. foreign aid, we can take, for example, Colombia. So Colombia had around 200 million per year. So it's and in this situation we can understand the priority of particular countries for the United States for their international policy. So more important countries from their understanding, they have more aid and support. The less important countries have less, and also there is a tendency that countries like Belarus, so we are not, let's say, democratic country or country in democratic transit. And usually if in our region we have countries who is more democratic, like Moldova or Ukraine or Armenia now, so they have more open government, more clear and transparent possibilities to cooperate, so we can transfer money from budget to budget between state budgets, and usually in this situation you can do more with the help of the government. If you do not help the government, like in Belarus or other authoritarian countries, usually the volumes of foreign aid is decreasing, and we can take Belarus or Azerbaijan, like countries in our region that usually have much less foreign aid than other countries. And but on the other hand, also we have, let's say, Africa, or countries in Oceania that is conflict, military conflicts with huge humanitarian problems, and there in this region, they could get much more foreign aid from US and also European Union and other developed countries because of these problems. And they try to buy this foreign aid to mitigate somehow
the humanitarian situation.
To decrease migration, to help these countries. And in this situation, for example, Sudan, they could get billions also of US dollars in this situation.
What I'm hearing, what you say is that these aid, it needs to be really landed on the ground to, be effective and to have, enough impact. So what you're saying that the situation in Belarus, the closed society in Belarus, the inability to work with the government, and that the civic society is partially in exile, it also puts a threshold on the maximum capacity. So, I mean, if the governments would like to, provide 300 million, 1 billion to the current civic society structures. So what you're saying, there is also a problem that there is no enough initiatives to, accumulate so much money, or isn't this the case?
There is such a case. So usually it would be discussed in terms of absorption capacity and effectiveness of their development aid. Of course, in the current situation, for example, we have huge sectors in Belarus that previously were funded from European Union and other sources. For example, small and medium enterprises in Belarus and development of small and medium enterprises. They got, let's say, quite huge of the package of aid. But now government restrict the flows of money, without help of the government, without more or less open situation in the country, it is not possible to support businesses inside Belarus. And so what in this situation can we do? So actually this aid stopped for Belarus. As well as support of, let's say, civil society organizations. Civil society organization, so there are many of them inside Belarus, but the legal and political environment are so tough and so restrictive for them that it is also hard to provide transparent flows of aid to these NGOs. So there are some problems for them, but not much money you can spend in that kind of environment. And this also decrease the amount of money that could be used in this situation. And also we have some organizations abroad. Even now, if we compare the number of organizations abroad, including independent media, and the number of organizations inside the country, where we have 9 million of people, much less we have in diaspora. And of course, we, from the donor point of view, they want to influence internal situation. And it's not the reason to support only those who is abroad. Of course, for some time it is possible, but not forever. The interest is inside the country. So that's why all these things, let's say, make the amounts of money less than it could be or was in a previous time when government was more open.
Yeah, this is a good point, I think, because 9 million Belarusians, 8.5 are still in Belarus, and sometimes, I think there is a bias that everything is happening in diaspora, but the actual living, I think, is happening inside Belarus. I mean, people go to work, they do business there, they live there. This is the actual state. So I mean, sometimes judging by the media in the West, you often see the figures in exile, but yeah, I think we should not forget about those who are inside the country, because this is the country. But before, you mentioned that the amount of the foreign aid usually correlates with the priorities of foreign policy. So judging by the amount that Belarus have received until up recently, why is Belarus not important for the US foreign policy?
I couldn't say that it's not important. It's not so important, let's say. If you have Ukraine close to Belarus with quite clear problem of their Russian war against the Ukraine, huge humanitarian problems, huge flows of Ukrainians living in the country. That could, let's say, correct your foreign aims and goals. And from general approach, Belarus as an independent country are not on their map of political stakeholders. So I remember that in 2020, after 2020 events in Belarus, John Bolton, who visited Belarus and was the former security secretary in Trump, security advisor for
National security advisor.
Yeah, for in a previous Trump administration. He wrote an article about Belarus, saying that we are Americans and the Europeans. We do not have a strategy towards Belarus. And what should we do with Belarus? What final goal of our policy towards Belarus? Should Belarus be regarded as a Russia satellite only, or should we see the Belarus as an independent in-between country between Russia and the European Union, or it should be integrated in Euro-Atlantic space and the European Union? And no answer, no strategy. So in this regard, so if no country on the map, so that's also influenced the prioritization of the country. And this is vague situation and the absence of clear strategy towards Belarus also correlates to their attention decision makers pay to Belarus.
Do you think situation is changing? So I mean, what are the current strategy? So did you see any sign that something is changing in the U.S. Foreign policy?
So in a long run, I do not see any changes. So it's still quite vague understanding what West in general wants from Belarus. But in tactical situation after the change of administration from Biden administration to Trump administration, there are some changes. So we can see more proactive engagement of United States politicians and civil servants in Belarus, including their recent release of their American citizens from Belarusian prison. After some contacts of Chris Smith from State Department.
Yeah, the Deputy Assistant Secretary.
Yeah, Deputy Assistant Secretary. After some contacts with Belarusian authorities, as we can listen, so they started to engage more proactively with Belarusian authorities, and also there were some statements from Lukashenko himself and other Belarusian government politicians about some contacts with US, and I think this is good. So to have contacts with Belarusian authorities in this situation is good for Belarus as such, even if we do not recognize Lukashenko himself as a legitimately elected president.
But doesn't it undermine the opposition in exile? I mean, even the foreign aid was targeted in terms of supporting political organizations were targeted mostly to these opposition in exile structures in the past 4 years, I guess. So they have not supported the government, right? They've not supported any pro-government political organizations. So could it also mean that the possibility of the renewal of the support, or the possibility of the engagement with the opposition in exile now is less after they took this more, maybe pragmatic approach towards Belarus?
I do not think that it's worked so directly. So more contacts with Belarusian government means less contact with Belarusian opposition. From my point of view, it's also depends from their actions of Belarusian democratic leaders themselves. So if they would be smart enough to understand that the situation is changing and more engagement needed with the government also, and could, let's say, somehow support widening of contacts of American politicians, and I could guess soon Europeans also. So it could bring them also more credibility from the partners. If they would ignore and insist that no contacts with the regime, regardless of the topic, even if this is a topic of release of political prisoners or decreasing the level of repressive pressure inside Belarus. So if it's only position no for any, so it's this position then will put them apart from developing contacts with the government. And about the foreign aid also, It was to mention that the main part of this aid is not going to the democratic political structures. Let's say the most part of this aid. These are support to independent media, culture organizations, civil society, partly support for business development organizations. Civil society in general and independent media, like a huge part. And only some part of them, of course, is going to the democratic forces of Belarus.
Yeah, sure, because I think these structures also need somehow to exist. And as I know, most of the folks who are involved in the political activism, they don't have like jobs in the private sector, right? So I suppose they receive money from somewhere to continue their operations. So there should be probably some foreign aid also, part of it at least go into them. Getting back to the foreign aid trees, what is the impact on the civic society because of it? Do you think some critical projects would be put to a halt? Do you think this is an acute problem, or Belarusian civic society will adapt? Do you think the foreign aid will be renewed in the end? What's your assessment of this?
So, as we discussed before, US aid is the third part of the whole total aid for Belarus, so it's huge. And the impact on their independent Belarusian organizations is also huge. So that means that for some organizations and some media that were dependent from one source of funding, so American funding, that could be critical, and probably they even could stop their work. For other organizations who has diversified sources of funding from European Union, also from member states, also from crowdfunding, for example, from private business. Also, private business quite active in support of part of civil society and cultural activities in Belarus, much more than before, let's say, before 2020. And it is also important for sustainability of their civil society activity and cultural activities among Belarusian diaspora, and also inside the country. And the main sector which is impacted by this decision is media sector, and mostly this executive order influence not big media, but let's say media in the middle, not bloggers, but medias which not so big, like I don't know, Nasha Niva or Belsat, but
It's
media
it's like
project
teams size of 5, 7
size of
people.
5,
Yeah?
7, yes. So they influenced most of all. From they could probably or decrease the staff or even partly suspend their work.
But I mean, there has been a lot of criticism about the effectiveness of the foreign aid. I think Marco Rubio has voiced his assessment that only 13 cents on a dollar actually is received by the end recipient. So there are a lot of most of the funds, they essentially fund the infrastructure. So implement organizations, various funds, it's USAID staff, etc., etc., etc. And I've also personally have seen, that implementers working in Belarus, American implementers, they hire like a lot of managers. There's tens of them working, on various projects, on various sectors. They all pay salaries to them. I also, have a feedback from some organization that it's hard sometimes to get direct money for support something because they offer, you some expertise. So essentially, they try to fund themselves. And I think we had a very good article back in 2019 by Pikulik, who actually argued that, this is a corrupt system because implementers genuinely interested in budget increase. So they also motivate the activists to, apply for the projects. So the quality of the projects really declines. And, in the system where everyone's interested in the increase of costs, this is not an effective system. There is no transparent assessment of the effectiveness of this project. So, maybe it's not that bad, that the market will take its course, and those projects, as you say, are more diversified, more sustainable. So maybe these are more competitive and effective projects. Maybe, essentially, it's the right thing to do to reassess the approach and to reduce bureaucracy, to reform USAID as an agency with tens of thousands of workers. So what's your opinion on that?
So I think that on the one hand, the whole system of development aid is under criticism for years. So all this huge machinery, so-called donor machine, is so huge and complicated that hardly could be named as an effective system of development aid. On the other hand, we need this foreign aid and the whole system of development aid to help least developed countries in solving their internal problems. So in general, if we simply cancel the whole development aid, this doesn't help the development of the global world. So we have mostly this development aid is about combating transnational crime, combating poverty, helping in economic development, so and also partly humanitarian things and democracy promotion.
But I think they have been issuing waivers for that. So as I've heard, so the humanitarian part, is under focus of the Department of State. So there is hundreds of waivers released for these, reasons. But the question is about what is called civic society, right? So some capacity building activities, trainings, maybe some, cultural events. Is this really, an effective way to disburse the foreign aid? How a cultural event in Poland really helps the democratic transition in Belarus? How a small media of 5, which has, I don't know, maybe 2,000 video views in YouTube helps the democratic transition. And all this project, they constantly receive this aid. So what's the point of that?
We should look to their effectiveness of these things. And in theory, in political theory, there are debates about effectiveness and approaches to the development aid. Let's say there are two big approaches. One of them is about development aid. So first of all, we need to help people to get richer. Let's say to build economic institutions, to build private economy, to gain more economic sustainability, and after that, on this ground, political democratic institutions could be built. And the other approach, this is approach of democracy promotion. This approach is about that we need to build democratic institutions and civil society first, because without transparent politics, without enough strong civil society, we can't build economic prosperity also. And it's somehow competing approaches. Of course, we should do both economic development and political institutions building, and these things are not so easy. So we do not have in clear recipes how to build democracy, sustainable democracy in a country. So that's why we should adopt the structure of development aid to the needs of particular countries and particular actors inside the countries. And of course, we need support for civil society, for independent media. But sometimes we have more effective projects or less effective projects. In general, we should assess every year what's going on. And we should do this with the involvement of their actors inside the country. So the general programs or strategies of development aid for particular countries should be constructed together with the local civil society, economic and political actors, together with donors. Sometimes it's not the case, but like you described. So you have a donor agency who knows better, who came to you, provide you consultancy. You don't need simply. There are such cases. And also there are cases of, let's say, not effective use of money for particular project. But in some cases, we can do a lot even abroad. We have also, TikTok, I don't know, interventions from some medias, Belarusian, with millions of views in this network. This program «Обычное утро»,
Casual
Casual Morning or something, who is recently announced that they are impacted by the cancellation of US foreign aid. They had 25,000 per day
views,
as I understand. Not so
yeah, but not so great as well, right? I mean,
so I'm not a specialist in the media, let's say, and about culture. So supporting culture actors is important. So culture creates also this meanings, values that is helpful for and important for the society. So I'm happy about development of Belarusian music or development of Belarusian literature in exile. And in our situation, external support for that kind of things is important. Our Nobel laureate, Svetlana Alexievich, I think somehow supported by the pen centers of other countries, not our own country.
Yeah, but I'm not sure she was supported by USAID when she wrote her books, for which she received the Nobel Prize, right?
I can't exclude this, so that that somehow it could be scholarship for particular institution or residency that she could get. I don't know particular, but in European countries there are such programs for the writers and cultural actors, and they could get some place to work and a scholarship to create something, and this is good for us because in our case we do not have the state behind our culture to support the development of our culture. We need to find resources or from private sector, and I'm happy that the private sector is much more engaged now, but also from the foreign donors.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I probably agree with you on the education because the opportunities are very important. So some residencies, grants. I actually can't agree about the exact funding of the products like books because, I strongly believe in market economy. And we also have cases of Belarusian book authors who are very popular, like Filipenko, for example, and others. Alexievich, who published their book not because of the foreign aid, and they became popular because people like them, right? And I think that, so when you're an early stage professional, I think you can benefit a lot from some grants and support. But when, I think there is a cohort of people who were starting to instrumentalize foreign aid. And, so there are some like cultural activists, so to say, that try to work on the market and try to be popular. And some of them, I think they're trying to instrumentalize foreign aid, and they adapt their, artistic views to what is expected from such projects. So it's just my impression. So I see this difference between those who are trying to work on the, on the market and those who are trying to work more towards this foreign aid frameworks of culture promotion.
There is no in some spheres there is no free market as pure free market.
No market.
So we in education, for example, we have subsidized from the government's programs. In culture, the same. So in every country, you will find a culture fund subsidized from the government sources to support cultural actors inside the country. To support culture production, creation of films and so on. And a lot of these things comes from their not private but public sources. So no pure free market in such things like education and culture. So then partly I agree with you that the structure of funding influence and sometimes create some deviations inside civil society sector and also culture sector. Then these actors start to adapt their aims and their ways of action and thinking to their donors' priorities, not their own priorities. And yes, there are such a deviation in this sector. So if you want to get money, you're trying to write your application that is relevant to the particular call for proposal. Yes, but it's on the other hand could be balanced by the other things, including market.
Yeah. So what you say, in the situation of absence of state, you need sort of a market maker, so a big institution who actually creates the market in the absence of Belarusian state institutions, especially in diaspora.
Yeah, but partly, yeah. So we need some support to the activities which is not supported by Belarusian government.
Okay, culture is one thing. The problem of effectiveness, I think, is the most vivid one here. But I have another topic for you. So-called like political organizations, political activists. So there is a number of civic initiatives which calls themselves politicians. I'm more strict about it because I believe that politics could exist, in a polity. So I mean, you can call yourself a political activist, but a politician is when you actually act in the political activity as a state. So I think it's important to differentiate. But okay, nevertheless, there are like people, opposition exile, which call themselves politicians, right? Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, Pavel Latushka, you yourself have been a speaker of the Coronation Council, and many others. Whose actual work, day-to-day work, as they proclaim, is not about creating media content, is not about developing culture, but is about meeting with EU and US politicians and talking to people, right? Talking to people on YouTube, on social media channels. I don't know how to what is a good exact naming for that, political activism, so to say, right? So as they advocate for some, issues, they ask Western politicians to do something, they do claims, they also, do value naming, so they, say that something is good, something is wrong, so they, construct the narrative in terms of how their target audience should perceive certain events, though political activists, so to say. And maybe you can remember, because we regularly hold these donor implementing meetings with the civic society, and I've also been part of those. And I've been saying constantly from 2021, after 2020, because I wasn't really a part of the civic society, organized civic society before 2020. I worked in private sector. I was telling them constantly that please don't give money to politicians. Please, yeah, okay, like human rights defenders, media, I understand that. But why the US government should directly fund a Belarusian politician? Because I strongly believe if you're a genuine Belarusian politician and you do something important for people, important for the private sector, so you should be able to find support there from the people and from private sector. It's just, it's just insane for me to think that most of the Belarusian opposition in exile now is sitting on EU and US money. So it actually hurts the idea of, independent state politics. So if they receive money from those governments, how they can say their interests are aligned with the interest of the Republic of Belarus as a state? I mean, so isn't it weird for you? I mean,
Yeah, of course, this is weird. This is weird, and in a normal democratic situation, it is not possible for foreign actors to fund your politicians. So legally, this activity is banned in any country. So in the United States as well. So it's not possible for foreign state to fund the campaign of any politician in the United States. And these rules should be applied the same to the democratic opposition also. And I think that people themselves, so Belarusian citizens, should fund their own politicians. But also, on the other hand, I can understand that these so-called political organizations, like United Transitional Cabinet in Belarus, or Office of Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, or Coordination Council. In general, we can distinguish them from the civil society organization sometimes. So they could do the project like any typical civil society organization.
Yeah, but I mean, there is a clear distinction when, I don't know, you have this conference in Vilnius, and they say that Svetlana Tikhanovskaya is a president-elect, so we consider her elected president. So this sounds quite political to me. I can imagine any human rights organization or media would proclaim themselves an elected president. So, I mean, there is a clear distinction how we can, differentiate between those, isn't it?
In terms of the rhetorics, probably yes, but legally, for example, or in let's say, when you are also saying that there is no politics in Belarus. We have the government and the rest of the civil society and political actors who is struggling for democracy against this authoritarian government. And for me, all of them is civil society. So, and for me, it's hard to distinguish between United Transitional Cabinet and civil society organization working in particular sphere, like, for example, environment. By their type of activity, because all of them are somehow against the authoritarian structure and authoritarian regime and wants the restoration of democracy. But ethically, it's unethically to take foreign money for clear political activities, even if this is activity to compete with the authoritarian regime.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think there is like a lot of work now to do about the foreign aid reassessment. In our civic society, chats and conversations in the last couple of weeks, they have been like an outrage of activists who blame Trump, blame State Department about they're not understanding the way it works. They say that this is a really stupid thing to do. I'm a bit more constructive about that, because I also believe that the reassessment should be made, and there is a lot of ineffectiveness in the system. There's a lot of ethical concerns actually. So I'm actually a supporter of such a reassessment and the reformation of the USAID agency. But in general, I mean, if we address the question in general, the framework in general, why are people blaming that this is like just a stupid thing to do? I mean, as you have said, there are like different frameworks, and it seems like the political situation in the world is shifting. So for me, we are witnessing a change of the paradigm, a paradigm shift, so to say. So the international politics, the diplomacy, the way of doing international policy is changing. Is it really connected? So to me, it's so much connected that, when you move towards these pragmatic politics, or so to say, not maybe theoretically right to say, but, realism, neorealism, right? Frameworks, this also influences how you perceive this foreign development aid framework. So you start not thinking about this as an important instrument. So I think this is actually what happened. This is not about like a voluntaristic decision, I don't know, of Rubio or someone like blaming them to be stupid. I don't think the folks are really stupid. I don't think that the man who won U.S. elections 2 times, or Marco Rubio, is not really thinking about what they're doing. I really believe they know what you're doing, but I think there's a broader picture in that. So, and my question to you: do you see that broader picture? Do you think this foreign aid freeze is actually part of the broader picture, or you think as well this is a very tactical, populist move that they have done?
It's hard to me to comment U.S. politics, and now we are in a such situation. Then around we have a lot of noise, sometimes provoked by their current decision makers himself. So comment by Donald Trump or Elon Musk. These comments actually don't help us to understand what's going on, and it on their in turn creates a huge retaliation from their other sides, and in this noise simply hard to understand what's really going on, and what actions are pre-planned, and there are some thinking behind this action, or is just spontaneous decision by the current administration. What I agree with, that we need to rethink the whole system of foreign aid, not only United States foreign aid, but in general. So this system actually is not so effective like it should be. In terms of development aid, in terms of democracy promotion, in terms of effectiveness, in terms of sustainability, in terms of, let's say, balance of the infrastructural spending and final beneficiaries spending and results. So I agree with this. But on the other hand, the way how it was done looked a bit unethical, let's say, because a lot of people, it's the thousands of civil servants who were worked for USAID and for foreign aid programs. They're quite good, genius people who did a lot of useful work in terms of helping other countries and promote US interest, because foreign aid is also a soft power instrument. And all these people and the system, I don't think it was totally corrupted. And all of them was people who is not genuine promote American interest in the world. And they worked for different administration, both Republican and Democrats before, so it's not partisan institution. And at least from my point of view, the more soft approach to the reformation would be better. Also, sometimes this action of Elon Musk and this Dodge initiative to cut federal spending and also federal staff very close to the attempts to cut government spending and number of government civil servants in Soviet Union. And every reform in the final end resulted in a growing spending and a growing number of people hired. And in this situation, I do not know actually if it will be the same results or it really be, reframing, restructuring, assessment of effectiveness and building something new and really more effective.
With USAID, I think the result could be the cost cut, because if you remove like 20,000 of staff, probably you will reduce the cost on operations. But I agree with you that it doesn't mean that the proper assessment mechanism will be put in place. So I think it's very important to have an independent assessment mechanism of the foreign aid, which is disbursed. So it's not yet clear how it will be implemented on the ground.
Yeah, and what it is not what is not clear also is the modality of the future work of the foreign aid of United States. I do not think that the United States totally cut all their foreign spending.
Doubt that,
So, for example, Ukraine or other conflict region, Israel. So they preserve this activity, and there are, let's say, three big questions about future structure of the foreign aid of United States. The first one is the type of this foreign activity. So what issues would we prioritize? Then volumes, so how much United States would like to spend on the foreign aid in the future. So now it's around 1% of US budget. So should it less or more? In general, on the global level, there is a commitment of the developed state to spend 0.7% to development aid for the country at the UN level. Let's say not many countries reach that kind of spending for foreign aid among developed countries. Well, so how much? This is second question. Third issue is which countries, what regions and countries will we prioritize? And we don't know. And what this means for Belarus, we also don't know. Probably it will be the support from the United States to Belarus. But who knows how many, which type inside Belarus program to support, people with disabilities or small and medium enterprises somehow with the agreement of the government and not exclude this, or it should be continuation of the previous scheme of support of only independent from the state actors.
I know you're also a part-time philosopher, and you worked with Vladimir Maskevich, who is one of the most prominent contemporary philosophical minds in Belarus, but so ideology-related question, hegemony-related. So do you think that this USAID foreign assistance is actually linked to ideology, and it does promote some sort of ideology. So why I'm asking this? Because when I go to Facebook or talk to activists in the Belarusian civic society, so I think 90% of them are very against Trump. So they don't like the agenda. Most of them hate him, right? They do posts on Facebook, on social media, and they like blame him, and they're supporting Democrats, right? There is also a divide on the Israeli-Palestinian question, I suppose. So there are a lot of people in civic society who, still believe in two-state solution, and they, don't support Israel, which is not aligned to the U.S. foreign policy, obviously. It looks to me from an evidence that actually this civic society, which was partially nurtured by the funds from the U.S., actually, goes hand in hand with some ideology, which is not necessary even, aligned with the political position that, elected government in the United States can have. So because there is, a very clear pushback about the recent elections in the Belarusian civic society.
If you are asking about alignment of the foreign aid with the particular type of ideology, yes, of course, it's aligned. But which type of ideology? Because I think that it's a bit far from the current ideological split inside American society, where we have groups blaming each other, from my point of view, for very strange things. On the one hand, guys from the left blame others that they are, for example, fascists and racists. From my point of view, this is very weird nomination. Exaggeration, total exaggeration. And on the other hand, we have other guys who blamed others with this ideology, diversity, equality, inclusion, woke leftism. And so that is also far from true, telling different bullshit, starting from that immigrants eating cats and dogs in Springfield, or making surgeries for children, transgender surgeries for children. And nothing of these things is actually true. And the ideology that is linked to the foreign aid is mainly linked to the, let's say, open society ideology. So political and civic rights promotion, prosperity, democratic institutions, good government, rule of law, market economy. That kind of ideology mainly is based on that kind of ideology. Mainly is based all the development aid around the world, regardless if it's American aid or European.
Yeah, probably. But how come, by my impression, the most of the activists which are visible in social media in Belarus, they're leftists, right? How come did it happen? Why did it happen? I mean,
I see not only leftists but also righty people here from the same sector. In Belarusian media, we have quite pro-Trump people who is vocal about this, working in Belarusian media, and also we have this more lefty people. For me, a bit funny that American ideological split accepted by our civil society and activists here, because it's about America, their problems. We have quite other problems. We do not have any single problem with racism in even American terms, or diversity, equality, inclusion things. Why we're arguing about this thing? Why we're arguing about the Trumps? Let's simply stop, think, keep calm, and think a bit. So let's see what we will be, because for now it's total information noise about this, without any clear understanding what it would mean for us. So now we have clear impact of cutting the aid, of course. But what will be after these 90 days, we will see.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I've seen, some activists, they have devoted their social media channels in the past months to criticize Trump administration. And it's really, funny, like, I don't know, someone from a Belarusian NGO who resides in Warsaw or somewhere starts to be an anti-Trump activist. At the same moment, I have a question like how it relates to a target audience, it relates really to the work you're doing in Belarus. Why do you care? I imagine you can care about the foreign aid phrase, but it's a technical thing, right? You need to write to State Department. You have Belarusian desk, right? You have like mechanisms. If you think that what you're doing is really important, you need to do certain steps to try to receive a waiver, for example, or to mitigate the impact, to diversify. But, devoting your time to participating in the US politics, it's really funny how through social media, these narratives are installed all over the world, regardless, of political affiliation or citizenship, etc., etc. So now, in social media, all the world politics becomes about, Trump politics.
Yes, this is at least in one aspect of ideological or informational globalization. The globalization itself was successful. We are living in a one informational
Trump
reality, and
Trump
now
world,
this is
yeah.
of course the main newsmaker is Trump, and everybody is discussing Trump. And by the way, this talked a bit efforts of civil society and democratic forces to mitigate this decrease of foreign aid for Belarus after the Trump administration decision. So they did quite good steps, starting to talk with the member states and the European Union institutions to somehow help in this intermediate period of freezing US aid. And I saw recently that European Union is ready to open the program for Russian and Belarusian media for this critical period of money freezing from US.
Good. Let's hope that the most effective, competitive, and compelling initiative will survive the freeze and receive the foreign aid they strive for. The last question I want to ask, and I ask this question to everyone who I'm meeting with, not only during this podcast, but also, day to day, Ukraine. So I would like also to know your opinion on two things. First thing, do you think the de-escalation, the cease of conflict, ceasefire agreement or something, is it good for Belarus or not? And do you think there is a possibility in the near future that such a deal, a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia, could be made?
From the very start of this active period of the war, full-scale war, I insisted that the sooner this conflict will end, or at least this military phase will stop, the better for Belarus. I'm fully on the side of Ukraine here. I understand the interest, but from my point of view, the more we look for the solutions, how to stop the conflict, the better for Ukraine as well, and for Belarus also. About the prospects, how it will be, actually hard to say. So I hope that Trump administration's efforts will bring new development, and it brought yet to the situation, but it will bring more, I hope. But what concerns me here, that there are no proposals on the table that could satisfy or even to how to say to bring something more to the sides of the conflict. So, for example, Henry Kissinger's proposal was quite wise because for Russia, he proposed to take Russia to the club back, to the club of international actors, to let Russia to regain some power in the security structure of Europe and so on. And for Ukraine, Ukraine clearly interested in NATO membership or clear guarantees. And in previous Henry Kissinger formula, there were such carrots.
When was
for
it?
The side.
It was 2022, right?
This was the end of yes.
It was half a year after the war, a bit more. Started,
around, yeah. And from my point of view, that proposal was timely, was very wise, but not accepted by Ukrainians that time. Because everybody think about military victory over Russia at that time. And now I do not see that kind of proposals on the table. So that means that possibly it will end only with protracted conflict. So stop
prolonged conflict.
Prolonged conflict. So the war could be stopped, but without any, further gains for the whole region, and it could be only short-term freezing of the conflict. And after some time, it could be renewed.
And do you think one can make a deal with Putin or with Lukashenko? Can you make deal with such personalities?
History tells us that it is possible. So the deals with dictators were made throughout all history, including such guys like Lukashenko.
Thank you, Andrei. I think it was an insightful talk. Let's hope that Marco Rubio will do the best to ensure that the most effective initiatives are supported, and the USAID will be reformed. And will not put to halt completely, but take a new form. And those initiatives and those activists who truly deserve this, they will receive the necessary aid from the U.S. allies. Thank you for this talk.
Thank you for having me.
This was Andrei Yahorau, the former speaker of the Coordination Council of Belarusian Opposition. He has also done numerous research about foreign aid to Belarus. He's been in civic society sector for 30 years. He's part of Center for European Transformation for Belarus. And it was me, Ivan Kravtsov, and the podcast Belarus Factor. Please follow us in the social media. We have our presence on all the platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon Music. Please subscribe and share this podcast to everyone who is interested in the region and Belarus. Have a good day. You just heard Belarus Factor, a podcast about Belarus, and me, Ivan Kravtsov. Please subscribe to our social media channels, share with your friends, and support Belarusian political prisoners.